for you with these, getting back to the sandwich generation and caring for your mom and having young kids at home? How did you deal with that? Because you also had a full-time career.
Yes, I had all three going, but I'm not the only one.
Right.
Women everywhere are dealing with this. I hear about it all the time. And my mom was out in California, and she always said, I don't want to go to cold New York. And she also, all her friends were out there. So I would just always fly out there and fly out there. And, it's a coast to coast trip. I really, thank God, I had a girlfriend out there who had been a family friend for years, and she had lost her parents, and they had both had dementia. So she understood the whole thing. And so she would go over to see my mom at least once a week. And God, to have a friend that's doing that. So, mine required travel. I was a caregiver from afar, but there are millions of Americans that are in that position. And, as soon as I would get there, I would like feel guilty that I somehow wasn't there, but I couldn't move back to Sacramento, California. I had a career and a family.
Right.
The only regret that I have is that when my mom was like in her 60s or so, or certainly going into her 70s, a lot of her friends had moved to lively senior communities. And every now and then I would take my mom when I go home, and she said, let's go over and see Hilda and this one. And we'd go over and we'd have lunch with them, and she'd play cards with them. And they'd say, Gladys, move here, move with us. And at the time she was in a condo that I paid for. And my brother, who is was a year older than me, but who had gotten type 2 diabetes when he was in his late 20s. So he had every complication because it just ravages your blood vessels. And he was in another condo, and I said, this is ridiculous. I should just put them together, and they'll be with each other. They won't be alone, and you can have one Con Ed bill and one cable bill. But I really wanted my mom to go and be with all of her friends and live. She would have been playing cards. She would have been laughing. She would have been talking about the world. But my brother smoked, which is why he died at 55 from type 2 diabetes, because you can't mix those two things. And none of the places would allow him to live there, and she didn't want to leave him alone. So consequently, my mom stayed in this condo with my brother, but as my brother got sicker and sicker and sicker and didn't come out of his room, she was alone, and she really kind of became a recluse. And as you read in the book, isolation is as damaging to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And I don't know whether everyone understands that. I didn't really, I knew it wasn't good, but I didn't realize just how dangerous isolation is for a senior.
Right.
And it leads to the depression, and they unengage themselves from the world. They have nobody to talk to. And if my one regret in life I think it's my only regret in life, is that I didn't push and have my mom move into where she would be lively and talking with everyone. By the time my brother died, my mom was, I don't know, like 85 and at that point when I finally went and moved her somewhere, because we tried getting aides coming in, but then I would go home to New York. Just wouldn't work. My mom was very frightened being there by herself. And I put her in a senior community that was that independent, lively community, and she could not exist in it at that point. I thought she'll go downstairs and have lunch with all the gals and talk. She couldn't remember anybody's name. It was embarrassing. I thought she'll come back up, but I had made this beautiful apartment for her, and in there, she got scared. She had sundown syndrome. I was putting her into a community that my mom of 10 years ago, but not the mom of today. And it's a common error. So I had to fly back out, find somewhere else for her to live. The last 15, 20 years of her life would have been very, very different if I had let her go and live in that community, or if she would have allowed herself to move.
Right.
She would have been talking with people and thinking and playing cards and doing things, and she would have been engaged. Those three things that I talked about.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I didn't put my foot down. I didn't do it. And so she really, her dementia increased exponentially.
I bet it sounds like she would not have left your brother. So I feel
I
like
know.
bad. I feel
Yeah.
badly for you
Yeah,
because I feel like you're blaming yourself. But
yeah,
I
I do
bet
a
she,
little
and
bit.
I didn't know your mother, but just from what it sounds
Just
like,
as a mom, you wouldn't have
I'm
left
like she
your.
probably
Oh
wouldn't
my
have left
gosh,
her son. Yeah,
she's
yeah.
a
Yeah.
great mom. And I've had so many people who read the book say, God, I feel like I know Gladys.
I
Right,
know. I do
exactly.
feel like I know her. I mean, and in
You
your
do.
book,
And she's
yeah,
all
yeah.
dolled up and ready
It's a
for the
spitfire.
day.
She sounds like such a strong woman because, in your book, the way your father passed
I
is
know.
so tragic. And I had no idea about that, about you. And when so this was probably in the 60s when this happened.
It was 1964. I was
It,
13 years old.
okay.
And he
Yeah.
was a cancer surgeon, and he spoke all over the country because that was not an era of specialties.
Hmm. Hmm.
um, so he was speaking down in LA at a cancer convention. He was also an avid private pilot. He loved it because it wasn't an era of specialties yet. And by the way, there was no chemo, there was no radiation. It really,
Mm-hmm.
when you found out somebody had cancer, you had to try to surgically remove that as much as you could and get all those margins, but still leave them a whole person. And
Right.
he used to fly all over the country and assist in surgeries. And he was flying back to our home in Sacramento and crashed and was killed at only 51 years old. And my mom was 41. So I watched my mom. I learned from her at that time. I learned how to hold on to resiliency in the face of great adversity.
Right.
At through some of the terrible things that happen in our life, we learn very important life skills. And I remember she said one day, okay, Joni and Jeff, that one brother, it's now the three of us. It's the team of the three of us. And we've got to dry our eyes and look and decide how we're going to live in this world.
Wow.
And I sat and she wrote my dad's eulogy and she read it to us, which was incredible because I think as a 13-year-old, I think about my kids now. They just went down. I'm toying with accepting a faculty position at Lehigh University.
Oh, wow.
So we drove down there on Monday, and so they went with us because they were looking at it as a school to go to, and they sat in this. It was the first time they were getting students together on campus. Everything has pretty much been virtual, and they had these students under a big tent, and the dean of the College of Health, which is a brand new college there, said, I want you all to meet Joan Lunden. And I spoke, and I thought, and we left there to go to the car. My 17-year-old daughter says, Mom, you're like a rock star.
How did you do
got up and talked about all this stuff, so much. And I was thinking on the way home, they don't really know who Joan Lunden is because they know who I am. My older girls went to the studio with me. They traveled all over with me. I go away from this house and I'm Joan Lunden. I come back here and I'm like, yeah, whatever, Mom. I'm an idiot because I'm Mom, I'm annoying,
Right.
at least annoying. So it was amazing to let them see that. So it just was, it's a second round.
Yeah. I think that is something.
But it's also having, I'm sorry, Bridget.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
No, it's also, when you speak of your mom, you smile and you tell wonderful stories. And that's really what she would have wanted. She would have wanted you to just find the joy. And so you're kind of, you're making stories for your kids someday to go, oh my gosh, remember when we went to, Lehigh and Mom gave that, that's what you want for your children to have those, it's not just about how you died, but how you lived your life. You want them to remember that.
That's what we talk about at the end. We talk about that dash.
Yes.
You all know that. We've all heard that poem called The Dash. The dash is what you did. What's the phrase?
Something between.
Life is God's gift to you, and what you do with your life is your gift to God. And there's so much in that. And, that little dash between the year you were born and the year you died, that's what you did with your life. And I remember my dad, who was very like a missionary. And I want to tell you something about that too. And he used to always say, like, I want you to go out and discover the world, discover, how different people are different in the world. And how are you going to make your mark? How are you going to make your mark on this world? What are you going to leave as what you did in this world? And that's how I kind of have always approached life. That's why, honestly, I think I'm the health advocate that I am now, because I always thought I grew up to be a doctor. Everywhere we went in my hometown, we always ran into his patients, and they would always embrace him, and they would like get down like eye to eye with me, and they'd say, do you realize, young lady, how much we love your dad and how much he means to our family? He saved my wife's life. So I always wanted to grow up and be that. I wanted to be a doctor. But I went to work in a hospital that he had helped found and build right before my freshman year of college. And I found that really quick. Stitches, scalpels.
All that other stuff.
That was not going to be part of my future. So I majored in psychology, which was probably good for me, interviewing people my whole life. But there was always that little nagging thing back there. Like, you didn't really carry on your dad's legacy completely. And when I was diagnosed with cancer, I think, well, as soon as I left GMA, I started my website. Because before that, Charlie Gibson and I, when I was there in all of the 90s, we never had laptops.
Right.
We didn't have email. We didn't have Google.
Right.
Any of that. But I immediately, when I set up my website and got a laptop, and they said, well, what do you want the name of the website to be? I said, Joan Lunden's Healthy Living. I mean, it just it wasn't even a second thought. But when I got diagnosed with cancer, that's when it really hit me. You just got the most incredible opportunity dropped in your lap. And it's hard for people to hear that that's what I thought.
Right.
With me, you just got an opportunity to share this journey, learn as much as you can about breast cancer, and share it with everyone. I took my phone into every single appointment. This is the radiation machine. This is what it looks like. This is what chemo looks like. And I had so many people come back and say, you took the scary out of it for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so nice.
That gave me the opportunity to kind of have my dad pass me the ball and say, and he said, okay, baby doll, you run it into the end zone.
Oh gosh.
And that's kind of how I've lived the rest of my life, is that I have this amazing opportunity through books, through campaigns, through, my work in the senior field, the aging field, the boomer field, the health field, to be able to carry on his legacy and have that be what I'm remembered for, when they do my little dash.
and it is so important. I mean, like I told you, everything in here, it really struck something with me. And I said, I'm making those appointments because they're so important. You talked about the tape measure, measuring your belly, or measuring your waist and how large your waist is. And I'm like, oh, my waist wasn't this size last time I measured.
Have you ever had a doctor measure your waist?
No, never.
No.
And when you said that, in
all of my years, I've never found a woman yet, or anybody, who said that a doctor took out a tape measure and measured their waist. And yet, as I talked about in the book, that it is, the experts say it's maybe the most important number that you know, because that waistline, that waist measurement can predict obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease. And, if you're over 35 inches as a woman or 40 inches as a man, then you can kind of tackle that. If you lose about 8 to 10 pounds, you can lose an inch off your waistline. But that's such a huge predictor. We should know that.
Yes.
When I first read that, I had to go to 5 other places to find out if this was really true.
Yeah.
And wow, not one doctor has ever measured my waist.
Never even heard of it until then.
Yes.
How does that kind of play into, because you do so much with health, the new show that you're doing with PBS, The Second Opinion with Joan Lunden? How did that come about?
So this show has been on PBS. It's a national health show. It's on every PBS station around the country, and it's an NPR stations. And it's been on for 17 years, but they've always had just a doctor from University of Rochester Medical Center. That's where the studio is, the PBS studio. And they decided they just wanted to take it to another level and and the producer said, I want Joan Lunden. Like, she's the one people look to, and that's kind of devoted her life to health, and yet she's a broadcaster. She's an interviewer. I loved the shows. I did 10 of them last week.
Ooh.
And there are certain times the pandemic works for you.
Yeah.
I don't want to be, say that the wrong way, but we had the top experts in every field that we talked about. One day was Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, anxiety, women and heart disease.
Wow.
Everybody that was the top in their field, because they didn't have to fly in Rochester and stay in a hotel.
Yeah.
They could just be in their office, and boom, you had them. I had Anthony Fauci on my second show. And I had him for 35 minutes, from 3 to 3:35. And you had to be done, no fudging, because CNN had him next.
Oh my gosh.
So here's the challenge, though. These shows are premiering in January. The shows with me as the host. Although they're now trying to get all the PBS stations, they want to turn this one show around with Fauci and get it on maybe in October or November, get it on early. Because the challenge is, how do you do an interview with the person that knows the most, but that's going to play in January, because we don't know what this pandemic's going to be.
Right.
Well, interestingly, I didn't realize this until I read the research for it. We did this show on coronaviruses. Now, there are lots of coronaviruses. One of them causes the common cold. We all hear coronavirus and we think, oh my God, there's something called the coronavirus. There are lots of coronavirus. SARS was a coronavirus, a lot of the pandemics we've had. We just didn't realize it. Now we understand why it's called a novel coronavirus. Influenza, that's a coronavirus. And that's one that changes all the time. Thus, we have a new flu vaccine every single year. This coronavirus that we're now dealing with, COVID-19, this is a very stable virus. I mean, it's pretty much the same. It's slightly different than if it came through Europe or the one that came straight from China into the West Coast, but it's not changing. And that's actually a good thing for finding a vaccine that will work, that won't have to change all the time. Another interesting thing he told me, and actually the director of the Institute of Epidemiology at the National Institute of Health, that was another one of my guests. They don't get any higher.
Yeah, exactly.
He told me something interesting. It was definitely not created in a lab in China. That the sequencing of the gene, he said, anybody that understands genes and epidemiology knows that when the sequencing of this gene came from one animal to another, it was bat to whatever, to human. And you can see in the sequence, he said it would have been virtually impossible to create that sequencing of genes in a lab. I mean, it's not the big thing, but I mean,
but that's amazing, because people really, some people believe
that. Yeah, some people do.
Conspiracy theories out there that he just said that didn't happen. It would be impossible.
Yeah, you need to get that episode out early.
As early as you can.
I learned so much about it. That we should all kind of know. And yet it is stuff I've never heard on any show, on any station, anywhere.
Yeah.
But when you took it out of the COVID-19 right now and put it into learning about coronaviruses, quite honestly, I didn't know it was a coronavirus that caused the common cold.
No, I didn't know
that. One, they still yet to crack the nut. They don't have a vaccine for the common cold.
Right.
These are perplexing viruses, but there's lots of them out there. So it was really
there was
show will stand the test of time.
Stand the test of time.
Yeah.
This sounds so interesting.
It does. I remember people putting up, the Clorox wipes, and on the back it said kills coronavirus.
Yeah.
And people say, well, it must have been flus and colds, those viruses. Yep. It wasn't, some people were saying, look at this.
Are you guys millennials?
No, we're Gen Xers.
But thank you for saying that.
So we did a whole show on millennial health. So as I start reading all the research and the panelists for this show, I'm thinking, why are we doing a show on millennial health? The millennials are the unhealthiest generation ever.
Really? because our children are millennials.
Yeah.
So why? Well, I mean, it's a host of reasons, but one that we can all understand, of course, is they came up in a time where baby boomers and Gen Xers, where life was big. We had all these modern technologies that were so wonderful, and these kids came up with huge expectations.
Right.
And the reality is not necessarily the same. They might still be moving back in with their parents. They have not the biggest paychecks that they thought they would have. And there's social media. Technology keeps them within themselves as opposed to out engaged. They are the most anxious generation ever.
Wow.
Ever. And that anxiety and that stress, that constant comparison of themselves with others. Why wasn't I invited? What is this? That you put it all together, and not to mention the decline in our nutritional food system. They've been raised on, Cheetos and McDonald's and
food,
so they have more of a tendency to have cardiovascular. They're having young people present with cardiovascular disease at 28. That never has happened in history. Type 2 diabetes being diagnosed very, very young. There's more obesity. There's more what they call visceral fat above your, this is why you have to have your attention on your waist. Any fat above your belly button is the most dangerous fat on your body.
Oh, goody.
And once it gets into your organs, it's called visceral fat. The only good thing is when you really start losing weight, you lose the visceral fat the first, but it sometimes can be frustrating because you don't actually see the fat coming off your body. But trust me, it's coming out of your liver and your pancreas, and that's really good. But this generation, the millennials, and I was unaware of this. We did a whole show on anxiety and the issue of anxiety today, and how it is a public health issue that it's never been ever before. But the ones that have it the worst are the millennials. I had no idea that this was.
I didn't know it would be that.
No, I wouldn't have guessed them either.
Yeah, I didn't. I love doing these shows.
Yeah, because we always learn
so much about. Never would have known about.
Right.
We did a show on Parkinson's, and one of them said it's a man-made disease. I was like, what do you mean it's a man-made disease? It's from all the toxins in the world, like farmers. Really? There's pesticides that farmers use that cause Parkinson's. There's stuff in our food. He was the author of a book called Ending Parkinson's Disease. And because he signed a book for me, and I'm going to read it. I have my daughter's mother-in-law has Parkinson's. So, but to think that our world has become so contaminated,
right?
Toxins that it's actually creating and making more people sick with things like Parkinson's is really eye-opening. Like, we should make it mandatory reading for everyone. But our country won't come to terms with it and take dangerous toxins out of the fields where the farmers are, out of the water in some cities, out of different foods. Europe does it. Other countries ban these chemicals, but not our country. So people die and people get sick.
Get these diseases.
I've heard about it, but to really do a show on it and hear it from the experts was awesome.
Amazing.
It's almost like saying, Gen X, we're living longer, we're enjoying our lives, but then the generation coming up behind us is not going to live as long.
And the experts say that this would be the first time in history that children die before their parents. Just because of how sick so many of them can be so much earlier in their aging process.
Wow, that's frightening.
Yeah, but I wasn't even aware of that.
Not about the millennial. I didn't
know anything about that. It's an eye opener.
Yes,
absolutely.
And
I must say, I have 3 daughters who are all millennials, and they're like, I don't mean to say this the wrong way, but health nuts. Like, they really are. Like, one of them is a health and wellness influencer. If anybody goes to NYC Fit Fam, which means New York City Fit Family, and follows her on Instagram, like, that's her whole career, is that she is
health and wellness,
fitness and wellness. But they're all like that. They're all, you know, they work out all the time. They eat really well. They keep me on the straight and narrow.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can be with them and they'll say, Mom, you shouldn't eat that. I'm glad they do it. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But they've also seen you have so much energy and live a healthy lifestyle. So they're
Yeah.
living by your example too, which is great because most of them are not, I mean, Chick-fil-A and, you know, drive-throughs.
And soft drinks and those
Yep.
energy drinks and everything else. Like my son would go from one extreme to another. Like when he was in college, he was doing those energy drinks to stay awake and things. And now he's more like, no, you know, I'm making this healthy meal and I'm doing low sodium. And so it's very different. But
you know what, Bridget? We can all learn from what you're saying right now. It's not like all of a sudden one day you're not at all conscious of health. The next day you have to be that person that does, you know, green smoothie and this and that.
Yeah.
They're little tiny changes. Like start trying to, as of today, like don't take 10 of them, take one of them. Water. Water is so incredibly important. And one of my fitness trainers did something with me. She got me those little tiny plastic, you can get them from like Orient trading, like a package of 100 for, you know, $7.95.
Right.
For 10 of them on my right wrist. She said, every time you drink one glass of water, put it over on the left wrist, because we're not honest with ourselves. And I realized that by like 4 p.m, I had like 1 or 2 over there. And by the way, don't try to correct that at 6 o'clock at night.
Or you're going to be up all night.
But it taught me how to hydrate during the day. And so another one, sleep. We know sleep is good for us, but we don't realize how lack of sleep is so detrimental to us.
Right.
Yes.
And so, you know, we need 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Now, obviously, when I was on a morning show, sleep was just my nemesis. And today I am really cognizant. I used to think, okay, so I'm going to be up at 3:30. So let me go backwards. Okay, if I go to sleep now, I can get 4.5 hours. You're like,
oh gosh,
that was my life back then. But now, I really look, and I don't care anybody who says that you're being lazy because you slept till 9. I don't care. If it's that I can do that and I can bank 9 hours instead of 7 hours, like I now realize that when you're asleep, there's something else that was fascinating to me that I learned. When you're asleep, when your brain makes new neurons, there's like a byproduct. I forget what it's called, but it's a byproduct that's in your brain. And so if you have a lack of, it's up there, but if you sleep, deep sleep, it's almost like there's a little team of, you know, car washers up there going, cleaning your brain of all that stuff. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's not important. When you wake up in the morning, you haven't had enough sleep and you feel kind of foggy and almost hungover. That's because you still have all this crap floating around in your brain. And when you start to understand how the brain works, and that's why sleep is important, and that's why you are kind of off and lethargic and foggy the next day, it's because you didn't have enough sleep. And it's really important so you don't have a lot of cognitive decline, to make sure that happens every night. But now as I start to say this in my little lay terms, start to get a picture of why it's so important that we get enough sleep. But do these incrementally. Decide that you're going to take some of the sugar out, and there's sugar in everything. But when you go to the grocery store and you buy a slice of ham and it's between, you know, plastic, look at it. Amazingly, that has sugar in it.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's part of the packaging thing. But if you just start becoming cognizant, you can buy ketchup that doesn't have sugar in it. You can buy, like, just start taking the sugar out here or there. Start adding in, you know, nutrient dense protein. You know, when I had my breast cancer, I worked with a nutritionist, and he got on the phone with me. He said, okay, you're not going to have any wheat, any dairy, any sugar, any alcohol. And like, I'm listening to all this and I'm thinking, what's left?
Right. Exactly. What am I going to eat? Right.
Does that leave?
You can eat vegetables all you want. You can eat nutrient dense protein. In other words, a little piece of chicken, shrimp, anything on a grill pan, but just not fried. He said, you eat it fried and your stomach when you're on chemo is going to go bananas. And I went through my entire chemo without having those horrible digestive issues that are so well known when you're on chemo. And it's because I ate clean. And you can make little lifestyle changes.
Right.
And each one of those little lifestyle changes makes a difference. And with that, I drink water.
Yes. And I
baby
love
steps.
The water sitting down.
Yes. Don't
drinking
stand
the
up.
water sitting down. I never had ever heard that. I never knew that.
Not that you can't drink water standing up, but you just have to know that it like shoots to your thyroid and your pancreas, where if you sit like this, it's absorbed in a different way. And by the way, water molecules are one thing, but if you eat cantaloupe, honeydew, watermelon, celery, that has water in it, but it's a different kind of water molecule, and it is absorbed into our body in a different way. So if you really hate drinking water, make a pitcher in the morning and slice up some oranges, put the oranges in, or lemon if that's what you like, or watermelon, but put something down in there, and it will make your water kind of taste better. And then throughout the day, pick it out and eat it.
Yes.
Those water molecules are better for us. We absorb our water in a different way. Like there's so many little things we can do for ourselves. And if you know that your weak spot is Tostitos, don't buy them.
Right. Get them
out. Grocery store.
Yes.
Do the perimeter of the store. You know what's on the perimeter?
Yes.
Of the store?
Yes. Produce. Yeah.
And real nutrient dense protein.
Yes.
Don't get sucked down into that aisle, and don't buy that thing which don't test your willpower.
Set yourself up. Yes. Yes.
So true.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do when you have teenagers living in your house.
Oh, that has to be. It should be easier for me because now it's just my husband and I. And I'm like, okay, he came home. Colleen's heard this story, and I cleaned out my pantry. I think it was in the middle of your book, and did all this stuff.
Walked in and said, "Where'd all the food go?"
I know it. And he came. I cleaned it all out, had it all looking great. And he works for a retailer. And it was the vendors, since they couldn't have their big vendor meeting, he brought home this huge box. I think it had 20 candy bars in it. Oh. I was so mad. But I have a nephew that lives close by, and I bagged it all up and I sent it to their house. Like,
get rid of it. Otherwise, there's going to be a point during the day,
right,
where you're going to say, I know that's down there.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. And Colleen said, save it for Halloween. I went, it will not be here for Halloween.
As she was like, are you kidding me? This will not last till Halloween. But oh my gosh. Well, there is so much great stuff in your book that we really could talk about all of it all the time.
I know.
But everybody, why did I come into this room? Get this book, because it really is our demographic. It's like you're just talking to us. It's just sitting in talking to us. It's just awesome.
I have 9 sisters,
and
they're all getting one of these. Yeah.
It's whether I hear from social media from a 40-year-old or a 60-year-old or whatever, they all say, you were writing this just for me.
Right, exactly.
Then they all say, boy, every 20-year-old female, every female in her 20s should read this so she knows what's
happening.
I'm so stumped by it.
Yes.
It's true. I mean, my mom is living with us and she's 79. I'm like, as soon as I'm done reading it, I will give it to you because you will love this book. So,
but wait a second. I'm hearing from men on social media who said, I'm just here to tell you that my wife got your book and she read it and I picked it up and it was so funny. It got me into it. And they say, and I think I know my wife and understand my wife much better now.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
But it's made me think, wow, we should make men read this book.
We should.
You know what? It's true, because when women go through menopause, we should make men have to go to the doctor's appointments to understand what's going on, because they have no clue. They're like, what happened? What happened to my wife? Like, where's
Yes.
we so want to thank you for coming on,
Yes, for
spending this
taking the
time and
time.
talking to, and we would love to have you
Fun.
back on when your show comes out. We'd love to talk
Mhm.
about it. And unless you're a busy
wait,
professor.
In Monday, I think it is, or maybe tomorrow, October 1st. I have a podcast that's coming out.
Oh, okay. Do tell us. We'll make sure to
The podcast is called Caring for Tomorrow, and it's all about the healthcare of the future of healthcare. I'm
Okay.
doing it for the Washington Post and the Cleveland Clinic.
Okay.
It will be, Caring for Tomorrow will be, and I, again, as usual, I'm talking to doctors about different aspects of how healthcare is going to change in the future. And how, what kind of discoveries are on the horizon for different diseases.
That's great. Is it a limited series or every week, or how is it going to go?
I'm grabbing my pen. I dropped it.
We've done about 10 of them.
Okay.
So we're going to get those started. So I've got the podcast coming. I've got the new TV show coming. And I'm going to probably decide by the end of this week whether I'm going to accept this faculty position.
Wow.
Are you lean?
And you can call me Professor Lunden.
That's next time we talk to you, Professor Lunden. But we just, I mean, it's so great to talk to somebody who understands, who gets it, and who is such a joy and zest for life. And the fact that, that age is just a number. So
yeah,
it is.
It is. Yes.
So please come back on and stay in touch. And we are going to be giving out these books a lot for Christmas.
We are. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, everybody. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yes.
Moms, aunts, you can just get them this. And it's funny enough that they'll enjoy it even if they don't really want to get healthy.
Yes. They'll
laugh. They will laugh through it. So that gets you to want to read more. So.
You guys are great. I'd love to come back sometime.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on. And we'll let you know when this comes up, because we are going to share it on all social media. And
I'll share it for you too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Mm-hmm. All right. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Well, I just cannot say how thankful I am that she was a guest on our show, that Joan Lunden was a guest, and just everything that I've learned. And like Colleen says, we learn something with every episode that we do. But this book, I just cannot recommend it enough. I mean, sisters, you're getting a copy, okay? Surprise, you're getting a copy of this. I'm like marching, downstairs. I'm going to order it, or I may just go to my little bookstore here and ask them to order it, because I want to help them out. So yes, so I'm going to be getting.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So go to your local bookstore and order this book as well, because it's great. You're helping out. You're learning a lot. You're helping yourself, and you're helping a local small business.
And I never even got to ask her about Murad, because I'm a huge Murad fan.
Oh yeah.
And she was a representative. She works with Dr. Murad, so she did graciously say she'd come back on the show. And I have to tell you, I'm going to take her up on that.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was so great.
And she's starting her own podcast, which is awesome.
Yes. So I can't wait to listen to that. It's just incredible. Everything was incredible. I'm still kind of pinching myself.
I know. We're kind of riding a high right now. I think
we kind of are.
But by the time the show comes out, we'll make sure to have all the information in the show notes, a link to her book, her podcast, every other thing. If she becomes a professor, then we may have to take an online class with her.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll audit
Professor Lunden, we need to take your class. So
yes.
Thank you for being a gracious guest on our show. Guys, make sure to subscribe. You do not want to miss a single episode of Hot Flashes and Cool Topics, and you can subscribe on any podcast platform. You could go on hotflashescooltopics.com, which is our website. We have all the episodes. We have the show notes. We have merchandise. We have stuff that we recommend for women, and we have promotions on different supplements and products you could check out on there. You never know. And and our links to all of our YouTubes, which check out the YouTubes. These people are going to be on YouTube.
That's right. Yes. So working on that. Yeah.
So we will talk to you next week. We have no idea who it might be with, because we haven't lined these up yet. So have a great week, guys.
Bye.